Avengers! Assemble.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Excelsior, the world's #1 Marvel's Avengers podcast. This is your episode for April 10th, 2021. I'm your director, Christian Buckley, joined as always by the Apex legend, Jack Martin.
Excelsior, Christian, and a happy birthday to you as of this recording.
Thank you very much. It is not looking to be a Marvel birthday for me personally, but this morning, that Falcon episode, that shocked me, so...
Yeah, what a delightful treat for you in the wee hours of this morning.
Yeah, you know, it's great. I got a Falcon episode today, and Taylor Swift redid Fearless, her classic album. That released today as well, so it feels good. Good content.
What are some highlights off of that album? Because my girlfriend, big Taylor Swift fan, and I've been following tangentially the highlights of her re-recording her old music.
Well, of course, Fearless, Love Story, you know, Romeo and Juliet, 15, You Belong With Me. There's a lot of really good classics on here. So
is Teardrops on My Guitar on that album?
No, I believe that is her self-titled album.
Okay, that is undeniably the best Taylor Swift song.
It's pretty good. How are you doing, though?
I'm doing good. I played a little bit of Marvel's Avengers this week, just sort of grinding through the Hawkeye challenge card, but yeah, again, as always, not a lot to do in this game, but...
Yeah, I played when I could this week, and of course, we will get to that. The fact that the game kind of broke sometime this week for PS4 users, but we do have an updated war table, a bunch of new stuff in the shop, some new MCU trailers, as well as this week's Falcon and the Winter Soldier Fat Dubs discussion, so we will get to that. But why don't we kick things off the way we normally do with Fury's Report. This week, if you want to get in the game, your low power level mission is Along Came a Spider, one of the Black Widow missions for, you know, the icon ones on the table. High power level is Rocket's Red Glare. This, of course, this is a repeat occurrence for the low and high power level rotation, right? But Rocket's Red Glare, Jack, it's a good mission. This is the space one.
Yeah, this is a really cool one where I think you're in Utah. You go to the space elevator, which space elevators in video games, always cool. And then you go into space and you do like a little capture the flag / I think it's more like domination actually, sort of sector, and then you get out of there. It's really cool.
Yeah, I really like that one, and I wish more of the missions like that would, you know, be pretty diverse like that. I hope we go to space more in the future, but if you want to get into the harm room challenges, which, Jack, I don't know if we ever brought this up, but did you realize that the harm room guy for making custom ones is Jimmy Woo?
No, I didn't realize that until you pointed that out to me. That must have been a day one thing that we just didn't realize, right?
I guess, yeah, because I don't think we ever talked about it on the show. I definitely remember texting you, because like, I remember the feature launched with Hawkeye, and I never used it, and then I was playing, you know, grinding out Hawkeye later, and I saw it pop up when I was going through all the missions, and it said, James Woo needs your help. I was like, excuse me?
Yeah, and this was right during the WandaVision hype with Jimmy Woo, like, taking over the internet.
Yeah, I wonder when that was a decision, you know, because I don't think he was in the game before this, so I wonder if that was they just saw the opportunity and took it, but...
I was thinking maybe he was the harm room technician in... that you like go see in the main storyline, but I honestly forget because it's been months at this point, and Jimmy Woo wasn't on the brain for me, at least at that point. Falcon or Avengers, no, Jesus, Ant-Man and the Wasp was long in the rear view window, and I didn't think I would ever see him again, but Here we are.
Well, if you want to run a harm room challenge this week, you'll be getting Iron Man Enter the Mandarin number 6 from 2008. Pretty cool, you know, but the marketplace, Jack, this week we have a deluge of new things, so run us through what's gracing the storefront today.
Sure. So last week we talked about the sort of squad outfits that have been revealed and are starting to sort of drip out, drip by drip. This week it's Hulk, Black Widow, and Hawkeye, who have that. What's it called? Is it like the space-faring outfit, something like that?
I think it's the aerospace
Yes.
skins or something like that.
Yeah, so they're basically white, gold, and black. That's pretty much the color scheme of that. And another highlight, a few highlights, I would say, is the Superior Iron Man skin, which shows Tony, like, no helmet. He has maybe like a quarter of a helmet, I guess. You could see his face and hair, and his body is like pretty much silver with some black accents as well. And there are at least 2 like variants of that skin type in the marketplace as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people really like that as an Iron Man main. Not my favorite, but I do think it's really cool.
Yeah, I think it's a super cool suit. I saw the green and gold colorway, like a forest green and like Loki gold. It looked pretty nice. But yeah, I did see some people in the subreddit upset because the body of this suit is just a reskin of a different outfit. But I think, which I can understand being upset by, but like the main thing is the headpiece, right? Like that's why you're getting the suit, you know?
Yeah, totally.
So.
I didn't do my research on this, but I would have to imagine that suit hails from the comics.
Yeah, and again, it's sort of like it's like a inspired by, if you want to say it, not the same way
Sure.
the MCU skins are gonna be, but like, it's like okay, it's in the ballpark. You got the suit looking generally like that suit, and then the important thing is the headpiece. But yeah, it is literally like one of the skins I think you can earn in Iron Man's challenge card. I think for the neck down, but just recolored. But I definitely saw some people being upset about that, considering it's a $15 skin, but I think it looks cool. I'm not an Iron Man main, so my word doesn't matter, but I think it looks cool. So
You also pointed out before we recorded the Hawkeye pack that we talked about maybe a couple weeks ago at this point.
mm-hmm.
We thought this was the 500 credit pack that supposedly you could spend 500 credits on
Mm-hmm.
and get 500 credits back through the pack with a Hawkeye skin and a nameplate. As far as I can tell, the social media post that announced that was worded very poorly
Mm-hmm.
because I believe how it is. I've tried to purchase it several times with credits, and I don't think you can. I think it's only a you have to spend real money on it.
Like PSN.
Yeah. So you go into the marketplace. Instead of the normal $5 500 credits pack that you can buy, it's replaced with the Hawkeye one, which includes 500 credits. So I think the social media post that announced that was saying the 500 credits equivalent pack is the Hawkeye one. Worded very weirdly. I thought it sounded as though you could purchase with credits and then that would be it, but it is a $5 purchase.
Yeah.
So, a little sad.
This whole time, in my head, since they announced it, we were talking about like, oh yeah, you can just drop 500, get 500. In the back of my head, I was like, they could absolutely wall you off of doing that. Like I wasn't gonna be blown away if this was the case, but now that you say that, because the thing is, they just kept saying it's in the marketplace, and I went over to the tab that said marketplace, and I looked at the main page and the Hawkeye page. I was like, where the hell is this thing? But if what you're saying is that it's in the place, which I cannot tell you how to get to it right now, where in game you can buy credits, not through the PSN actual like store.
Right.
That makes a lot more sense. That's why I couldn't find it. But yeah, that sucks. I understand what it is, like, because when Fortnite does this, they have like their $5, a couple like 600 V-Bucks and a skin pack. You can't use V-Bucks to get that, so like I was assuming they wouldn't let you maybe, but yeah, that's a bummer to hear. It's confirmed that you cannot drop 500 credits on it.
So I want to read the tweet of this announcement because it is not a good tweet. It reads, and I don't want to harp on anyone who's doing like social media, but it's very confusing because we read it this way. So it reads, get the Heroic Starter Pack, a one-time 500 credit purchase worth a total of 1750 credits. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. But a one-time 500 credit purchase sounds as though you can spend 500 credits to get all the stuff
Yes.
in there, which worded improperly. $5, not that much money. I don't think I would spend actual money on that. I would obviously rather just spend the credits I've accrued, but yeah, a little bit disappointed based on that wording. I thought we were getting something a little cool for credits that we might have already had, but I guess not.
Yeah, which like I'm maining Hawkeye at this point in time. I kind of like that Mad Max inspired outfit. I like having credits on deck in this game, so it's $5. Maybe one day I just feel like treating myself or something. But yeah, it's definitely. I'd still like to see more like packs like this, and like I remember there was a weird thing with the PlayStation Plus pack, but I think that's all ironed out at this point. But um, in other news for this game this week, we did. You want to start with the good thing or the bad thing?
Let's start with the good thing, because I don't think there's too much to talk about the good thing.
Sure. So, Avengers 2021 content roadmap has been updated and specified, which I am a big fan of this. This is exactly the type of update and communication I think you and I were talking about and wanting from this game.
Mm-hmm.
The previously broken up to spring, summer and beyond is now broken up with March having launched the next gen version, the Hawkeye operation. April confirmed Tachyon Anomaly, that event where you will be able to play as multiple of the same heroes, and there's going to be some story context for it, some new mission type to run, presumably limited time. They're going to just see how it pans out. And May is the Red Room takeover, like we assumed, for the Black Widow sort of synergy release and dropping MCU skins. But we did have that sort of pause last week. I know Crystal mentioned like, hey, we're not the MCU, because Black Widow was delayed. But it's nice to see that they are sticking to this for May, because even if it's a small slice of content, I think pushing it to July or whenever Black Widow's coming out for the sake of it would have been a bad call.
Totally. I'm glad they doubled down on what they probably intended to have as a May release with the Red Room takeover, even after the delay of the Black Widow film. So it's nice. It's nice to see. I'm glad that they're sort of trying to get the marketing synergy with the MCU as much as they can, but also saying, hey, like what you said, hey, we're not the MCU. So, and this game sort of desperately needs some content. So this is coming out. It can come out in May, so it will come out in May, even though it will not line up as nicely as it could have with the Black Widow movie. But yeah, it's good. I honestly am not sure I expected the Tachyon anomaly in April, given that we're already 9 to 10 days into the month. So that must be coming in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I remember when this roadmap was thrown out there, and again, pre Black Widow delay, I think we assumed these two would have been April and May. I think we actually like just might have said that, but yeah, it's interesting to see, and like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a mini little war table video on the feed next week or maybe the week after. But yeah, April, there's a couple weeks left, so they gotta drop it at some point. But I'm looking forward to checking that out. I'm interested. I any new type of mission structure for this game, I'd be interested in testing out. Maybe I finally try matchmaking if I know I'm not gonna have to pick around characters. So yeah, and you know what? Maybe you and I squad up for this too.
Yeah, maybe we find a common hero in Captain America, maybe, or Black
Mm,
Widow,
mm-hmm.
and yeah, roll through a couple missions together. That'd be cool.
Hell yeah. So looking forward to that. Of course, when Crystal announces it or showcases it, we will be covering it on the show in more detail as well as impressions. So look forward to that in the future. But yeah, no other updates. I, I might be misremembering this, but was Cosmic Cube always in Summer and Beyond?
I believe it was. Yeah.
Okay. And they didn't split up like summer and summer. Or okay, wait, no. I think was Black Widow like early summer maybe.
Um,
Because I feel like I
Maybe.
remember there being like three split things the way there are now. I'm not sure, but
Maybe. But either way, Cosmic Cube was in the summer at some point.
yeah,
And
like I think we said like maybe August or something. Like
yeah.
it's probably out there, but well, that is the good news for this game for the week. The bad news, let's shift over to some stark realities because there's been a couple issues with the game and another update as well. But I brought it up before, Jack. We're not going to go into it specifically, but I've been comparing this game, Marvel's Avengers, very frequently in my head to the way I've been watching Outriders because Outriders is another Square Enix published game that looks, sounds, plays like a live service game, but is not. But it was marketed better. It's still launched with issues. It's still dealing with a lot of issues, having a lot of server issues. But this game is breaking records, right? Like the Steam concurrence, they're beating every Borderlands game. It's like top 5 on Game Pass right now. Like the game is being received very, very well. So it stings a bit looking at Marvel's Avengers, which I played the demo of Outriders. I've played a lot of Avengers. I think Avengers does stuff good enough that I think it could have gotten a similar reception. But the way it's been handled, I think, is pretty rough. Because I definitely think there's a way you can launch a game like these two that are similar, not have it be perfect, and then recover and still exceed with it. Because I think there's merit to Marvel's Avengers, as we've talked about in the past like 6 months of doing this show, right? Like, there's ways to do it, but this week specifically, they put a patch out. It completely shuttered PS4 players from being able to play. For I don't know how long it was like that, but they got another patch out. I was able to log in last night and mess around with Hawkeye some more, but earlier in the week I was not able to get in, or maybe I could have, but I saw what was going on and I was like, I'm hearing people throw around losing save progress. I'm hearing people say all these things. I don't want to mess with that. I'll play when it's fixed. So,
Yeah. I believe that was like a 24-hour period where they released this game on PS Now, which I guess we could sort of glanced over that. I didn't expect this game to come out for PS Now ever.
yeah.
Because maybe it's because I don't think of PS Now ever.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's a good get for the service, 100%. But I don't know if that is the avenue to draw people in, because I know there are like 2 million subscribers to PS Now, I believe, something like that, which is not an insignificant amount of people. But if you want this game to get into the hands of new players, it's PS Plus, it's Game Pass. Those are the services we've been talking about,
Yeah.
and PS Now is the oft forgotten one, I would say, for good
Jack,
reason.
when I saw PS Now the other day, I was a little miffed. All right,
Yeah,
because like I saw like what that tells me specifically is they wanted Game Pass so badly, but because they were painted into a corner with all these PlayStation deals, they can't. And this was the next best thing. I'm sure they wanted Plus as well. They're like, hey, they probably didn't say we want Game Pass, but like they go into it wanting that. They're like, hey, why not Plus? You know, because Plus is sort of the equivalent if you want to make comparisons on like the value of what's being provided. Because I'm with you. I think what this game needs is a Plus or Game Pass. And then PlayStation was like, no, we have a service, you know, just put it on there.
I think the strategy with going to PS Now is, I think, as far as I'm aware, it's a limited time deal. So I think this game is available on PS Now until sometime in the summer, at which point it will lapse and people will have to buy the game. So
Right.
I'm thinking Square Enix was like, hey, let's put it on this service for a limited amount of time. The subscribers will have access to that. We'll play it for a few months. And then if they like it, they go out and buy the game. Almost as a way to sort of double dip for the game, which is smart, but also I think PS Now is comparatively such a smaller audience to PlayStation Plus users and Xbox Game Pass users that I'm not sure if it's going to pay off in the end, but
Yeah.
for the service itself, for PlayStation Now, I think it's a good get.
Yeah, and I think that just brings it back to where I kicked off with Outriders, right? Like that's a no offense to People Can Fly. Bulletstorm is really good, but like Outriders is a brand new IP, really no fanfare. Uh, Looks on the surface pretty generic, and it's charting constantly, and even with Game Pass, things leave the service, right? But you do get that incentive. You are incentivized to buy it after because you get a discount for playing it on Game Pass.
Hmm.
And I just look at that and that player base. Like, I think in the popular on Game Pass thing, it's like in the leagues of a Minecraft and like a 2K. That's where Outriders is right now. Now imagine how much wider the player base for this game would have been if you get Marvel's Avengers, just the name, on that service, right? That's easily going to hit the top five.
There
So,
is a very weird dichotomy between the approach to Marvel's Avengers and Outriders, where you mentioned it earlier with Outriders being a single player experience that you can play with friends and is not considered to be a live service game, even though it is a live service game
right.
for all intents and purposes. Marvel's Avengers was marketed as a live service game that was mostly a multiplayer game. There was, of course, the single player content, but it was marketed and advertised to people mostly concerning the end game content and playing with friends. Turns out Marvel's Avengers is more a single player game than I think Outriders is. I'm not sure if there's anything much more I could say to that, but I just think that approach is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like the tables are sort of switched between the two games.
Yeah, so it's a lot of what ifs, but I do think that the sentiment of going to a service with this game, which is something we've talked about before, of like maybe going free to play eventually, or free to play air quotes of like being tied to a subscription, um, that you already pay for other stuff. Like I I really think there's a world where this game can get that second life. Maybe by the time for War for Wakanda, maybe they're able to negotiate a deal with Plus or a deal with Game Pass. But I think more than anything, this game needs a community that can see that the game is really like has a rock solid foundation that just needs time and content. And the way you do that is with providing it for what your average player thinks is free, right? Like it's tied to something you're already paying for all these other things. So it's like, oh yeah, I'll try it out. And then it's like, oh, wow, I actually really like how Captain America plays. Iron Man is super fun. The story's really good. It runs really well on my new console. Like, I think this game still has an image problem. And it's the reason that you brought up the topic, I think, originally a couple weeks ago. It's like, that's the reason why it needs to be not like a trial weekend, but something like this that is very low stakes to get into. And you're right, PlayStation Now it's a good get for that service, but I think it needs to be a good thing for the game more than a good thing for the service.
Yeah,
So
totally. Um, and nowadays, most multiplayer focused experiences are free to play, or in some way or another free to play. Like Call of Duty releases $70 installments every year, but it has Warzone now, which is free. And most of the people playing Call of Duty are probably playing Warzone because it's free and it's just so accessible. Same with Apex Legends and now with Destiny and Destiny 2, or Destiny 2 rather.
yeah.
So, and yeah, Outriders now, of course, being on Game Pass is essentially free. It's I feel like it's really hard to release multiplayer focused games now that are behind a paywall because you're asking a lot of for potential players to spend that money to maybe like the game, maybe not. Especially with Avengers being, for me personally, a 7 out of 10. That's a hard ask. Whereas Outriders, from what I've been hearing, is a really good game, but people have also been saying this is like a 7 out of 10. But I think people love that so much because for them, as mostly Xbox players, I feel it is essentially free with their subscription service. So like they didn't really risk any. There's no risk involved with that game. Where there's I think $30 wall behind this game as a risk. So yeah, we've talked about it before, but I think this game will end up on some sort of service eventually.
Yeah, I would hope. And as much as I think Game Pass is probably what it needs, I doubt that happens because of the Spider-Man deal and because of the PlayStation marketing and the PlayStation Plus packs for the subscribers, which I feel like I only ever saw two of those. like, uh, yeah, I think they're kind of backed into a corner with the PlayStation deal, and unless it goes to Plus, I don't know if it's ever gonna get that big boon that it could hopefully need, unless they just rip the Band-Aid off and go free to play and charge for something, which by the looks of how they're handling War for Wakanda is not the feature of the game.
There are some rumors about a potential PlayStation PlayStation's answer to Game Pass.
Mm-hmm.
David Jaffe in a video, who like made God of War and Twisted Metal, was saying that he had sources in Sony that he's been talking to that they've essentially been saying, "Yep, there's something that's happening. Doesn't know what it looks like, but there is some sort of Game Pass equivalent coming from PlayStation." And I think Jim Ryan, the CEO and president of Sony Interactive Entertainment, was saying that back in November with an interview with some sort of Russian outlet, was asked about like a potential PlayStation Game Pass service, and he was like, "There is news coming, just not now." So it seems that potential is becoming more likely, and with that likelihood, maybe a year or two that's announced and released, I could see Marvel's Avengers showing up on that because of what you mentioned with the deal in place between Square and PlayStation.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to assume if that does come to fruition. But I think at that point, my main thing is like I just hope this game lasts that long. like
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's a pretty tricky situation for Marvel's Avengers, but hopefully, like I mean, we didn't really even talk about that too much, but like the fact that it's like, hey, yeah, free for PS Now. Oh shit, it broke. Like that's just another like bad image thing that they really don't need. You know?
Yeah. For their sake, I'm very glad that it seemed to have been fixed very quickly,
Yes.
because Lord knows if they release that on PS Now and for every other PlayStation user, it's just broken, and who knows how long that. Imagine if that lasted any longer than it did. That would have just been completely awful. I don't even think they published a statement regarding that, because I think they wanted to keep that very quiet, and we found difficulty like even seeing like outlets reporting on that, because I think it was sort of a flash in the pan situation.
Hmm.
Also, maybe because no one's playing the game potentially. But yeah, they didn't address that. I think they quietly fixed it and then just moved on, which is probably the smart move, to be honest.
Yeah. So, ideally, with future content drops, or that's a weird thing because PS Now has this weird like tiered infrastructure to it with how the different consoles work, but hopefully in the future. Oh, also, I'm pretty sure this is the case here as well. Even though it's a PS4 game and PS Now games can be played on PS5, and the PS4 games on PS Now can be downloaded on the PS5, you cannot redeem and download Marvel's Avengers for PS4 on your PS5 and upgrade it to the PS5 version. You'll be playing the PS4 version as if you were playing a Pro because of the enhancements that are just given by the extra oomph.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I think, did you say that technically PlayStation Now isn't a PlayStation 5 service? Like, you're downloading the PlayStation 4 PlayStation Now service.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's weird, and there aren't any. I didn't realize that until I didn't realize this until this news came out. But there are no PlayStation 5 games on PlayStation Now, which is
Yeah.
bizarre.
Mm-hmm. So, if you are looking to get into it though, everything should be taken care of by now. So, I think there's also a trial of PS Now you can get if you don't have a sub but you do want to try Avengers, or if you're trying to sell your friends on it. Uh, I logged into my PS4, I think the day that this thing was going live, and I saw, how sometimes PlayStation will just like throw a thumbnail icon on your media bar for the PS4?
Yeah, they give you an ad as soon as you
Yeah.
boot up the console. Yeah.
Yeah. I loaded it up and I was like, 7-day free trial, try PS Now right now. And it was the picture of Marvel's Avengers as the icon. And I was like, right next to that on my bar was Marvel's Avengers. And I was like, yeah, okay, game. You know what I'm doing, sure.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so if you want to check it out, you can check it out. If you're curious, I recommend it. If you don't like PS Now, like Jack said, you can get the game pretty cheap now. I see it hit $20 a lot, but curious to see how this tracks in the coming updates and expansions. So we'll keep an eye out for that. But meanwhile, there's been some rumblings on everything. I saw one thing that broke, Jack, that we can save last here
Okay.
because it's going to tee up Falcon.
Sure.
But first up, let's start with the thing we didn't watch. There was a new Black Widow trailer this week.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to gain a sense of what this trailer covered. I didn't watch it because, I just would like to be aware of what I'm aware of when I see that movie,
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Yeah,
want to go with too
I'm
much.
with you. I don't
Mhm.
I don't want to see anything because we're at the point in the marketing cycle where it's like, all right, we gotta put some sort of new footage out there, and I just don't
Mhm.
want to see that. I think we're in the same boat.
Yeah, well, from what I could gather, it seemed like they didn't put out new footage per se with this.
Mm.
It seems like they're restarting the marketing campaign for Black Widow because now they have a locked and loaded date, right? We have July, we have Disney Plus and theaters, so it's not moving.
Yeah,
So
totally.
it's like, hey, we're actually getting into the marketing cycle for this movie now, which I think is great because I'm looking forward to this. But the way that this trailer works apparently is it's like kind of a retrospective sort of thing. Like, remember the Endgame trailer that was like the highlight reel in black and white?
Yeah, with red mixed in here and there.
Yeah, there's a good chunk of that in here. Like, it shows Endgame footage of her on Vormir before it goes into some of this stuff. And I saw some people speculating that, oh, is Black Widow the movie sort of like a what she's recounting of her life on in her final moments on Vormir before she decides to make that sacrifice? Because I've seen screenshots as well of like what looks to be maybe like a 13-year-old Natasha
Mm.
from the trailer. So like not in Red Room territory, like in a countryside. So like maybe we're getting some flashback stuff on that level. Like I think it would be interesting if they framed it that way of like Natasha looking back on her life. Like, do you think that's something that's realistic, or is that just fans looking into the way the trailer was cut too much?
I think it's realistic because I think given the tee up in Avengers: Age of Ultron with the Red Room flashback that they wanted to dip into that at some point, and it just turned out that Scarlett Johansson's sort of done with the MCU, and this is the last movie they have with her. So I expect to get some more information about the Red Room and her past, dealing with the ramifications of that. So yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I think it'd be very interesting because we do know as well that the majority of this movie takes place between Civil War and Infinity War. So that is when the stuff with Florence Pugh and David Harbour are taking place. Um, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Reception seemed pretty positive for the trailer, so only hoping it's gonna kill it and be again the Winter Soldier follow up that I've always wanted.
Yeah, if my second shot for the vaccine is next Friday, and if experts are saying come July, once they're saying 70 to 90% of people will be vaccinated by late July, that it'll be safe to go to the movie theater again, then this might be my first one back, which has me very excited.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good way to bring it back. The world stopped and so did Marvel. So once it's back, it's all good to go. But there was another trailer this week that we did watch. The Loki trailer for the upcoming Disney Plus series. Pretty chunky trailer. Gave a good sort of lay of the land of what to expect from this series. What did you think of it?
Yeah, so it's funny that we were talking about not wanting to watch the Black Widow trailer because it's pretty close to the release, and this one is a month away, but I watched it just out of curiosity because I have no clue what this show is going to be, but I have a better sense of it now because this trailer dips into the sort of idea that maybe Loki's hopping around doing some business for whatever this organization is, trying to fix uh, the change in time that he made, and the tone of this has me very excited because Tom Hiddleston's sort of charm is all over the place, of course, and mixed in with Owen Wilson, I think is a great pairing, and they have some excellent back and forth in this trailer alone. So I wouldn't say hesitant about this show before. I was just sort of more confused what it'd actually be, but I have a better sense of it now after this trailer, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, I was going in the past after they pitched the show with like Doctor Who Twilight Zone vibes for the show.
Mm.
And it seems like they're sort of going into that a little bit, but it's much more in Loki's tone of being very like cheeky. Uh, oh, did I do that? I'm not evil, like that kind of thing. Like it's it looks great. I'm really excited for it. It looks very very fun and very wacky in a way that's not like off-putting. The way that Loki sort of is able to carry that presence in all of his appearances. Um,
Yeah.
and the organization is the Time Variance Authority.
Mm.
So yeah, because I think in the trailer they also go into the idea that Loki shouldn't exist, but they're using him kind of,
Yeah,
right?
he's like a tool for them, and they mentioned like this Loki variant, so it sounds like we might see other variants of Loki played by different actors, which I think is really interesting.
Mm-hmm. There's one that's been floating around a lot, and I don't know if this is actually a confirmed casting, but Lady Loki. Are you familiar with Lady Loki?
I've only heard of Lady Loki because of this trailer and the fallout from it.
Okay, yeah. So Lady Loki. Well, I mean, like how mythology works with gods. They really have no defined like coding. They can just be whatever they want.
Yeah.
Um, I think Marvel Comics has dipped into Lady Loki at times, and I believe it's just Loki, and then he just does that
Hmm.
and becomes Lady Loki for a period of time. I don't know, but it seems like the way the show is establishing it is that, like you mentioned, there are other variants, so different parallel timelines or universes or whatever, which again sort of just is continuing on the plan of the multiverse potentially that we're seeing unfold through the end of WandaVision and Doctor Strange next year and Spider Verse or
Yeah.
whatever Spider. No, No Way Home.
I'm really excited about the potential of this show being much more episodic than Falcon and the Winter Soldier is,
Hmm.
more akin to WandaVision, because it seems like, based on the trailer, that Loki's going to be going on like different missions at different points in time or different realities, what have you. I think that sets up really nicely for an episodic television show that each episode is very distinct from the next, and that has me very, very excited.
Definitely, yeah, and we do know that there will be a second season of this show as well. So lots to look forward to with Loki. So be on the lookout for that. That is dropping in June, I believe, the first episode.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
June 11th, right?
yes, that is correct.
Very
So
nice.
looking forward to it. Um, there's also, I'm very glad you remembered this. You added this to the doc. Would you like to tee up what Marvel Studios did recently on Twitter this week?
Yes, so we unfortunately forgot to talk about this scene last week's episode, but in episode 3 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, they're in Madripoor and they're at a dance club, and there's some shots of people dancing, and of course there's Baron von Zemo doing the fist bump, Jersey Shore style, and people loved it. And it's, you can, if you go on Twitter, there's thousands of gifs about it, and it's amazing. People were saying, I think there was an interview with the actor who plays Zemo,
Hmm.
and he was saying, yeah, I actually did a lot more dancing for that scene, and they just sort of cut it down to what it was, but it was very involved. And of course, in today's internet culture, release the Zemo cut was trending as soon as possible after he said that, and dutifully, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier Twitter account posted the long, unedited cut of Baron von Zemo showing off some dance moves, and it was a great little boon for fans of that scene, which is great.
Yeah, that was excellent. And I love that they did that. You know, it's very fun. It's not like anything major. It was a good, fun little thing on Twitter. And I found this out too, Jack. Kind of tangential, but it is related to the actor Daniel Bruhl. Um, I found out that when he was significantly younger, he voiced Lightning McQueen for the German dub of Cars.
What?
Yeah, there's a German dub of the film Cars, and he's Lightning.
That's incredible.
And he look in the interview I saw, he looked like our age. I don't know how old he was, but he looked younger than us, honestly. Like he looked very, very young.
Oh, jeez.
But
I remember him in Inglourious Bastards. That was sort of my touchstone to him before Civil War. But yeah, Cars, terrible movie franchise. It's very
yeah,
unfortunate.
really. You know who loves Cars? John Walker.
Yeah. No, dude. He doesn't like Lightning McQueen. He likes Lightning McQueen's arch rival, the one with the mustache.
Chick Hicks is
Yeah,
his name.
he's a big Chick Hicks fan.
Oh man. Well, there was one other thing I saw and mentioned that I wanted to throw out here. Via the direct, your home base. Apparently, the next episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 5, is going to be over an hour long.
Yeah, that's cool. I think this will be end up being like around 6 hours in total, the whole season. So yeah, I love getting the little short movies that we're getting through Disney Plus essentially with these longer episodes, and then with the Bad Batch with the first premiere, that being essentially I think 70 minutes. So that's great.
Yeah, that's a short film, baby.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's exciting. I think there's a lot of ground to cover, and clearly after this week, there will be a lot of fallout to deal with in these final 2 episodes. So why don't we dip on into Falcon and the Winter Soldier talk? This is episode 4. I forget what the episode title is called. They're kind of inconsequential, I feel like, the title names compared to WandaVision, where that was like the gimmick every week. But
Rocket's red glare.
yeah, sure, yeah, that you know what, that's very fitting as well.
That would be on a multiple choice question for what's episode 4's title.
Yeah. Well, spoiler-free impressions, Jack. What did you think of this episode?
Yeah. So like I said last week with episode 3, I liked that episode, but it sort of felt like we were in the middle of things, and it had some fun scenes, but overall I sort of glazed over at some points. But this episode definitely brought me back. There's some really great character interactions between people I didn't expect to see interacting. Some really interesting forward momentum for a lot of the characters in the show. And yeah, overall, I think it was a really great episode of the show. What about you, Christian?
Yeah, I agree. I think I really liked last week's episode. I thought it was very fun. But this week, I think, brought it back to a lot of the themes that this show's been trying to hammer in on, and including some that they kind of didn't really touch on after the first episode or two, which I appreciated. Like you said, really good forward momentum, and it was specifically towards the end of the episode. It was like edge of my seat type stuff. Like I was locked into the screen. So why don't we dip into spoiler territory?
Do you want to just start at the end?
Yeah, what a fucking image, dude. Oh my god.
John Walker holding the bloody shield after battering that man to death with it has to be the most graphic shot in the MCU.
Oh yeah. Without a doubt. Because here's the when he's out there in the streets, right? Like when he's running out there and he's like, because obviously his partner Hoskins presumably dead. I don't I wouldn't be surprised if next week it's like, oh yeah, he's in a coma. This guy just like overreacted.
Yeah.
But Hoskins' Battlestar got kicked into a pillar by Erin. That is the actress. No.
Carly.
Carly, thank you. Um, because the thing is, I was talking about Enfys Nest with Mike on Jolly Nights last week, and he's like, "Yeah, I thought it was super funny. You guys just kept calling her Enfys Nest on Excelsior." I was like, "I know, I was trying."
I mean, you're right. She kind of is the same character, but oh well.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so Hoskins got messed up, and then Walker reacted and went into the streets chasing this dude, threw the shield at his head, I think, and then downed him by a statue, which I was trying to get a good look at. I was like, this would be very interesting if this was like an American statue of something, but I don't think they were going that over with it. But yeah, so the show's talking about police brutality now.
Mm-hmm.
That was incredibly impressive, and I thought they handled it so well.
I like how you get the sense that he took the serum
Yeah,
without having shown it because he like bends some bars here and there and
yeah,
is
and
jumping out of buildings.
yeah, and Sam just like straight up is like, "What did you do?"
Yeah, exactly. And earlier, Lamar was talking about how when you take this serum, it sort of enhances what you already are, which is a really great callback to what Erskine said to Steve. I don't know if he said it to Steve, but Erskine said it in the first cap where he's like,
He
when
did.
when you take that serum, it'll just enhance what you already are. So bad becomes worse, good becomes great. I actually think that was the exact quote.
It was, yes, very good job.
Thank you. So that's essentially reiterated in this show, and then earlier in the episode, we see John Walker being like very hot-headed and like cannot sit still, and it's very unsettling. And that becomes amplified because he takes the super soldier serum. And yeah, like what you said, that's a really great point. I don't think I even picked up on that, but yeah, that is essentially an allegory for police brutality, where there are so many bystanders watching on, sort of helpless, and recording this too. And yeah, it just having the shield representing America being bloodied by an agent of that country is quite the image, and what a way to leave off the episode. Jeez.
Yeah, and I was just impressed they went for it more than anything, I think, because I think this show so far, like even like with Isaiah, like I was like, wow, they actually went for it. They're doing something here, and I think Marvel in the past has not really gone in on that too much in terms of just like critiquing the military or the United States in a certain way. Like, and I think there is still a way they can like weasel it out of it, of like, oh, it's just the bad guy, like kind of what they sort of did with Hydra and Shield. But in the past, the only like visual, because I think having a visual image like this is still way more impactful, even if you like backtread on it slightly, like I think Winter Soldier had that really great moment of like Bucky dragging Steve out of the river, and like it just his uniform, the basically American flag uniform, was just dirty, muddy, covered in blood, soaking wet, dour, just being dragged through mud, and then leaving off on that image in the background, like Washington is burning. Like that, I think, is the closest they ever got to just saying something visually, but here it's like way more in your face and like visceral. And I'm very glad they're touching on this, and I hope that this is sort of a triggering moment for Sam to fully like go for it now. Like next episode, I hope Sam sees this and thinks on his interactions with everybody so far, everything he's been dealing with about race, and then seeing this man abusing what that shield means, and is like, okay, I have to do this now. So
Yeah, I feel like that image, when they left on that image for like a good few seconds, it really felt like that came out of a comic book. Like
yeah.
it just felt like one of those, even if you haven't read comics, like it felt like one of those images that you just would know from the comics. And yeah, I think this is one of the more disturbing images from the MCU, and I think this will be looked back on as, if you know the MCU, you'll probably think of this shot. And they nailed it in that regard. It's very unsettling, and yeah, they handled that scene very well, I think.
Yeah, I musically I got a sort of a cue to the Winter Soldier theme almost.
Mm.
So I don't know if they're trying to do something there of like, Bucky has gone away from that, and this episode takes his time through the beginning and through Zemo's discussion with Sam of like, hey, Bucky's a good guy, like he's trying, he's a different person than Winter Soldier. He's come back from that, and he's a good guy. He's not like Steve Rogers status, but not. He's evidence that not all the super soldiers have to be bad, and Zemo even acknowledges that, right? Like he gets stumped when Sam's like, "Then what about Bucky?"
Yeah, there is that moment of hesitation.
So I think opening the show with Bucky sort of being freed of the Winter Soldier burden, and then previously this season we've seen the music come back for when he has to step into that, but something similar being used for John Walker at this ending moment when he is a villain. He's murdering someone who was innocent and in the streets with that shield with these powers post serum, I think is probably intentional. Just like sort of shifting like the idea of the evil super soldier away from Bucky and towards this guy. So
Right. And circling back to that scene with Bucky and Ao at the beginning, talk about making you feel for a character that you didn't really feel for before in the MCU. I was weeping at this scene, and it was the first minute in the episode. Not cool, Marvel, but you get Ao like testing out and sort of deprogramming Bucky with using the code words that triggered his turn into the Winter Soldier, and Bucky's straight up weeping listening to this because he's not sure if it's going to work, and then he's thinking about all of his past as the Winter Soldier, and then by the end, he's freed. And I think it was a incredible performance by Sebastian Stan and very emotional.
yeah, that entire time I was like, wow, it's like Sebastian Stan's killing this right now, dude. Like he is flexing. This is incredible.
And in a special note to he like, when you're crying and then there's the point where the tears actually come out of your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That happened right when Ao said freight train or freight car.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was so perfectly timed. Obviously, like a reference to him falling off of that train and the start of him becoming the Winter Soldier. So, a beautiful scene.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Bucky Barnes in the previous episodes of the show. I think it helped him stand out against some other characters in the MCU, but this is, I think, by far my favorite Bucky scene, and it goes a long way to humanize him.
Absolutely, yeah. And I even missed that connection. That was a great pickup. But this scene specifically is what I was talking about when I was like circling back to themes that kind of abandoned, which episode 1, you see Bucky in therapy, right? And I was like, wow, I'm really glad they're talking about men's mental health through Bucky Barnes on the stage of the MCU. And that kind of got dropped, but they brought it back here. Very raw, with that scene. That's the first thing. They set the tone for the episode with like, hey, deal with trauma. This is an important thing. It doesn't matter who you are. Like this can be life-changing. And the fact that they brought it back, they started the episode with that, and then it ties in so heavily to just sort of Sam's character development too, right? Because he's seeing the amplification of good and bad now. He's seeing what it's like for someone like Bucky who was manipulated that way, and he's sympathetic for Carly the entire time, right? Like Sam is like constantly giving her not necessarily benefit of the doubt, but like seeing how her head works in these scenarios. And I think all these things working together just went to elevate Sam even more as like the guy who is Steve Rogers' successor. Because I got big Steve Rogers Captain America morals from him this episode. I don't know if you felt that way.
Yeah, totally. I mean, his work as someone who worked with veterans after they came home and sort of like would do sort of group sessions with them and talk them through what they were feeling. Mm-hmm. He mentioned that in this episode and then essentially used the skills he had in those rooms with Carly. And yeah, I feel like Captain America is just someone who can win an argument just by talking things through, or not even win, just sort of get to know the person through talking things through. There's just there's like a charm about Captain America that Black Widow sort of jokes about in Endgame, where she's like, if you try to talk to me about my feelings, I'm going to throw this peanut butter sandwich at you. And yeah, I agree. You totally get that sense from Sam in this episode for sure. And there's a point where Zemo and Sam were talking, and I think Bucky were talking about super soldiers, and Zemo was like, there hasn't been another Steve Rogers, and the camera cuts, of course, to Sam. So yeah, he's, like we said, he's already there. I think he just needs to accept that for himself.
Yeah, I agree. And I think in, again, stark contrast, this entire episode, we have this sort of proving of inheritance of, like, the morals of Steve Rogers, not just, like, the image and ideals of Captain America, right? Compare that to everything with John Walker. Dude, I still hate, even whoever's underneath that thing, I hate seeing a gun next to the shield. It just feels wrong. I hate it. Like him going up that stairwell with like the shield and then like the Glock right above it. I was like, dude, no. I feel like that would have been way more impactful if whoever directed Joe Johnson, right, who did First Avenger, didn't give Steve a gun. Joss Whedon didn't give Steve a gun. Like, I feel like you would have hit even another point there. But anytime I see a gun with a shield, I don't like it.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. If Steve never picked up a gun in the MCU, then that would have been, I think, a little bit more obvious. Yeah. When John Walker's walking around fully strapped, but yeah, there still is that sense of unease because I think in the last few films we saw Captain America, he was mostly just shield and fist, and that was pretty much it. So I think you're right. You still sort of get that feeling, but man, the insecurities of John Walker just made me feel so uncomfortable this whole episode. Like, Sam and Carly were, having a civil conversation, and then John Walker's in the boiler room, which I think is pretty funny now that I'm thinking about it, with Zemo and Lamar and Bucky. And he's like, I literally wrote down, like, man, he's like coming off so hot right now because he can't sit still. He's staring at the shield. And he's very insecure, like, in his position now as Captain America. And yeah, it was very uncomfortable, and it just got even more so as the episode went on.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think props to Wyatt Russell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's doing a great job with this character because I think I forgot about that. Yeah. He's doing a great job, honestly, because like
totally.
I still feel like John Walker's going through an arc, and he's not just stereotypical villain. I think there's some nuance to him at least, and I appreciate that we're able to see the cracks. We saw the cracks out the gate, but like seeing them just like continue to like tear apart, and then just what's underneath it all elevate with the performance and the reasoning and story of the serum, I think is really, really great. I think he's doing a really good job. Yeah,
you could tell there from the first episode you see with him, which I think was episode 2. You could tell that there was something there, even if it was hidden away behind his cockiness and sort of brashness, there was some inherent goodness to him of wanting to do the right thing. But yeah, he definitely like sort of strays off that path. And with the fight with the Dora Milaje, when he's bested by them, he's like, they weren't even super soldiers. So like,
yeah,
you get the sense that he wasn't sort of wanting to take the super soldier serum until he is sort of bested by that, and he had that conversation with Lamar, like, hey, would you have done this? And which of course he says yes. So I feel like he's essentially like, I need to do this to be Captain America, like, so I agree with you. I think it's more nuanced than I was, or that I was hoping that it was nuanced, and it turns out that it is.
Yeah, and I think also that that specific scene with him and Lamar talking over lunch or whatever. I I wonder, and I hope this is the direction they go with it, because I think it's clear that there is, like we're saying, a level that's more than skin deep with John Walker. Like, I would love if they're, in that scene, they deliberately are like, hey, yeah, the serum amplifies the good and whatever, like, you are underneath it all. And they also talk about John Walker's time in Afghanistan and his medals of honor, right? So, and the way he talks about that, Walker is like, like it was pretty messed up. Like they treat me like a hero. It was a terrible thing that happened that day. We don't know the details, but like clearly he's not happy about that, right? I wonder if they would be as bold as to go down a path to comment on the state of what the US military can do to the people who are members of it mentally. And that is the reason that when the soldier serum is amplifying his core, the root of the issues that are amplified are because of just the way that the military works in the US.
Yeah, I could see that. That
I don't know
would
if they
be another
will, but
sort of thing that they're juggling in terms of
yeah.
the themes that they're trying to convey. But
Hmm.
you could say that that's already happening with just his position at the very end of the episode of just straight
Yeah.
up murdering a person. So yeah, even if it's not as overt as some of the other themes that they're talking about, yeah, I think you're totally right.
Yeah, because I think it would go a long way, because I think we talked about it a bit last week, but U.S. agent at some point is a member of the Thunderbolts. It seems like they're trying to throw the Thunderbolts together, and it seemed like that for a long time. There's been seeds in place, but yeah, I think if you want to have U.S. agent be a guy who returns and is on that Thunderbolts team, like you need to give him some angle of sympathy. And I think if you are using him for just this specific use, then I don't know if I'd want to see him on a team like the Thunderbolts, because this man is literally the worst of America. He's acting out like elitism. Zemo throws around supremacy, and then uh, like we mentioned at the end, police brutality. Like I don't know how you can sympathize that in a future project.
Yeah, I'm wondering what his arc will end up actually looking like when everything is said and done,
Hmm.
because I think when the show first started, I wanted him to sort of just go along the trajectory of being sympathetic in a way, but sort of going about what he was doing in a wrong way and then realizing, and then sort of stepping back from that. Um, I have a feeling that he's probably going to double down on what he's been doing.
Yeah.
So I wonder how I'll feel about his character come episode 6. Maybe he does come to a point of a reconciliation. I feel like that's probably hard at this point. So yeah, I guess we'll see in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. I think also there's something to say about like what is left episode wise, because there's only so much they can cover. I know we talked that maybe next week's episode is an hour or over that. So like I'm expecting, and we can talk about expectations right now if you want, or we can also cover anything else in the episode. What is there anything else that stands out to you that you want to mention?
Um, the one the one line that I was thinking about was when Carly was in a graveyard with, I think it was the person who ends up dying.
Mm,
Um, and he was essentially saying something along the lines of people need a hero that looks like them today. Um,
mm,
and I thought that was a really interesting way of a side character talking to not the main character, but essentially about the main character in Sam,
yeah,
where he's essentially talking about like, hey, essentially saying like, not saying it to Carly, but saying it sort of more of like a fourth wall breaking thing, I suppose. But
yeah,
like, black people need a hero that looks like them and that they can look up to, essentially. And that obviously applies to Sam being Captain America. So I thought that was really interesting that that conversation was placed for Carly, and it was more for the audience than anything. I feel, and I liked that.
yeah, and I think I definitely thought the same thing. And when Carly and Sam have their first meeting in after the funeral service, like I definitely got that vibe that she was thinking back to that conversation because the way she was treating Sam, the way that they had their back and forth, and sort of how Sam was talking about, like, hey, I understand your pain. I understand not being cared for, feeling like your people are not cared for or irrelevant or not important. Because he's talking about that from, his experience of racial injustice. Like, and I'm glad the show keeps touching on these things because I don't know about you. I've seen plenty of people deny that the show is about that, but
That's ridiculous.
yeah, yeah, I think they're killing it. They're doing a great job.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why last week didn't really hit for me as much because it was more action oriented, and that's totally fine. Like to sort of take an episode back, less character focus and sort of more focus on plot and action. But I'm glad this week was more of the mix of the two, and I like getting the character interactions and the themes that we had in the first two episodes come back. So yeah, this episode was definitely a highlight.
Yeah, that Dora Milaje fight scene was incredible. That was very good.
Hell yeah, and they were aiming to kill too. I loved how ruthless they were. It was great to see them.
Yeah, I love that. He's like, oh yeah, I'm Captain America, and she was just like, I don't care.
Yep.
uh, yeah, that was really great. So we can talk about predictions, I guess, because there's a lot of stuff I think that sets up probably the final two episodes of the show this week. Um, I don't know about you. I'm kind of expecting I mean, immediately next week, I'm assuming we take care of John Walker and the Shield, I'm sure. But I'm wondering if the U.S. is just like, hey, so we're gonna take this back, and I wonder if they either go to Sam with it to make them look like the good guys still and sort of brush under the rug of like what we were talking about before, or like maybe they take it away from him and Sam's like, hey, I want it back. Maybe old man Steve pops up and he's like, hey, I gotta take care of this. Listen to me. Like, what do you think?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking either old Cap comes and gives Sam like a motivational speech and be like, "Hey, you're already this person. You just need to identify that as yourself and go reclaim the shield." Or Isaiah does that. I think old Cap or Isaiah could fill that mold and fill that role for Sam. I do think we will see Steve Rogers as Joe Biden in this show. So yeah, I'm expecting that interaction to happen between either old Cap or Isaiah and Sam.
Yeah, I'm in the same camp. I was thinking this episode a lot of like how could they work Isaiah into this moving forward. I personally I don't know how they would realistically unless like he just had a lot of time to think after that meeting, but yeah. In a similar sense, I know we talked about it before. I think they want us to think all the serum is gone now.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah.
There's exactly one vial left, Christian.
Do you think Zemo has it?
I'm not sure.
I think Zemo might have it, and I think because there was a moment in this episode, Jack, where I was almost prepared to hear Zemo say, when he asks Sam, like, would you take the serum? Because that's after the serum is supposedly gone. I think he's asking Sam, would you take it? Immediately he says no. I'm wondering if Zemo has a vial, and he's like, that was a test, or like, I don't know, because I think he sees that element of Steve that he said he's never seen before in Sam. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's holding on to just one. Maybe.
I actually think that conversation was before the Dora Milaje fight. Because, like, the serum was destroyed. Wait, no, you could be right. Never mind. You're right.
Because he had the ice over his eyes. He got KO'd by
yeah, I was thinking the serum breaking and the death scene were the same scene, but they weren't. I think that there's definitely one left because Sam needs to be presented with the choice. Just in terms of writing, that needs to happen. So I think Carly probably has a backup on her and is like, you know what? when Sam like becomes the new Captain America, she's probably gonna be like, you know what, you could probably use this. I trust you. And then he
Hmm.
takes it and like smashes it or takes it. I actually don't know what's gonna happen, but I
Yeah,
think that is sort of what I'm thinking.
I think that makes sense because I'm thinking specifically to that scene in the graveyard where Carly's friend coworker is like people need a hero that looks like them, and then
Hmm.
what we were talking about Sam and her in the church, and like her seeing Sam's like earnestness and honesty about his experience being who he is and dealing with people that don't care about you and oppression. Like I bet she sees him as being more capable because she knows who he is, and seeing that honesty from him, I'm wondering if that line about a hero for them, I wonder if she sees that in Sam because she tries to recruit him. I know it was like a distraction so they could kill Walker, but she still was like extending that branch.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I could see that coalescing into that scene where she offers him the choice of
Hmm.
uh, taking the vial. Um, I'm at this point where I don't know if he would use that or not because I
Yeah.
think either way it could be really powerful.
Hmm.
Of obviously denying that, but also potentially taking that and accepting the responsibilities that come with it. I'm not sure where they're gonna go with it, and that has me excited, honestly.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of 50-50. When they gave him the shield originally in Endgame, I was like, okay, so what story are we gonna tell about how Sam gets the super soldier serum? Because like, I do think in just in like a writing perspective, if this guy's Cap moving forward, Cap took some hits, and I think like they like I know Widow took hits too, and so did Hawkeye, but like jumping out of a 50-story building and landing on the shield, right? Like I think there's maybe a little leeway that they might want to have extended to them by having a character with that power, but uh, yeah, I'm with you. I think there's a lot of power in him choosing to not use it and like being given the choice as opposed to Isaiah. Or I also think him accepting that and like having his own say in it and realizing it's a hard job to represent this nation, people who look up to me, and the implications of Sam Wilson being Captain America. It's a hard choice, but he's committed to it, and it's not easy. It's not perfect. There's gonna be bad things about it, but I do think there's a lot of power in that also, which I could see it go either way. But I won't be disappointed with either option. I don't think.
I'm with you. Yeah, I think this episode really brought me back in a way that episode 3 kind of didn't, and
Mm-hmm.
the I think the show is on a very interesting trajectory. Um, and yeah, I'm just next week is gonna be a good one. And then, man, I can't believe the show's done in 2 weeks. That's wild.
I know, yeah. Like, oh, there's. I know. I hope we get a suit up scene at some point. Just like a final look. Cause yeah, that'd be nice. But uh, one thing I wanted to ask you. I don't know if we talked about this last week, but I've seen a lot of people assuming that Sharon is the power broker.
Yeah, she's not.
She's not. I don't understand. I don't understand. Like,
there,
why?
it's there was a message that one of the flags matchers was reading to Carly, and it was worded like you're like a petulant child, and I don't think that Sharon would speak like that. That sounds like an old man.
Yeah, dude, I'm doubling down. It's General Ross.
It has to be, right? It has to
Yeah.
be.
Jack, I made a TikTok about this, and all these people were like, "Oh, so he took a break from being the power broker to go to Tony's funeral." It's like Batman, Bruce Wayne goes to parties. Like
Yeah.
you got to keep up appearances.
Yeah.
So,
Um yeah, cuz this when when does this take place? This is before Far From Home, right?
so I think so. Well, hold on, because they're at the beginning of this episode. It says 6 years ago
Okay.
because that's
that
when
gets
Bucky's in Wakanda.
that gets so confusing with the snap or with the blip
Because
rather.
everything so far we've seen post Endgame is still 2023, as far as
Yeah.
I know.
Uh-huh.
So if this show is also 2023, 6 years ago would have been 2017, which is a year before Infinity War.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps anything.
I know this is obviously it's after Endgame, and I believe the furthest Phase 4 project is Far From Home. Oddly enough, in the timeline.
I think so, yeah, because that takes place almost right after. Or no, sorry, no. Far From Home is what you said, not
Yeah.
No Way Home.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, I think WandaVision is right before or a week after, and then this is some nebulous sort of in between, maybe before, maybe after. Who knows? But
Yeah. Um. I so I think it is probably General Ross, and if it's not, it's someone we know. I think would be very unbefitting of Sharon's character to be the power broker. That seems
yeah,
weird. I kind of hope it's not her. I don't know how they'd even manage to deal with that.
yeah, because
So I don't know.
apparently the Power Broker is still a character in the comics. So that was the other thing. I was like, yeah, maybe General Ross. People were like, it's a character from the comics, but it's Sharon. It's like that's it's not. They can just replace. You saw Iron Man 3, the Mandarin. Like we've done this. Like it's just the title, but yeah, I'm wondering how big of a focus that is in the final couple episodes, though.
Yeah, because we haven't seen them purposefully, because
Yeah.
that's how we know it's probably someone we know.
Mm-hmm.
Because we would have had like the whoever Inspector Gadget's evil villain is, we would have had those cutaway scenes where he's like, "That child, I'm gonna get
Yeah.
them," and we haven't got that, so it's obviously someone that we probably know.
Yeah.
And oh man, I'm hoping it's not. Now that I'm thinking about it, I hope it's not gonna be like a third act. I'm the villain.
Yeah.
Let's fight.
You know, Jack, take this to the bank. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Final episode. Uh, John Walker's in custody, right? Maybe after the end of next episode, he's arrested in prison at the raft. The end of the show, post credit scene, lights go out in the raft in John Walker's cell. He gets a message signed Power Broker or something, and then red light goes on in the room. General Ross is standing there and being like, "I'm putting together a team,
Hell yeah.
the Thunderbolts," and that's it. That's the post
I
credit scene.
I think that's perfect. If you haven't made a TikTok about that, I think you should. Uh,
I will do that today. I haven't done one yet today.
so that's perfect because I kind of don't want to see the power broker now that we're talking more like
Exactly. Yeah.
until the very end. Like I don't want him
Mm-hmm.
to be like what we were mentioning. I'm the real villain. Let's fight and have a dumb fight. I think it would be really interesting if there's a lot of like TV shows and movies even that have a thread that isn't picked up till the very end, and it sets up a future with that character.
Yep.
So I think that would be really interesting, and the fact that we haven't seen the Power Broker at all would totally be fine that we only see them at the very end. More being like the Power Broker is sort of like a player behind the scenes right now, and I think it
Mm-hmm.
would make a lot more sense if we don't see them until the very end of the show and being like, well, my turn, and then we get whatever next project with the Power Broker.
Exactly. Because you're right. Throwing them in there as a big reveal for the final episode or something, I'm sure they could make it fine, but I think that would maybe take away from a lot of the momentum we have. So, yeah, doing it this way, I think you're right. It tees up the next thing, which is what Marvel always loves doing. And maybe that opens the door for a season two. Our new Cap and Bucky Barnes taking on the Thunderbolts or something, or maybe that's the next movie. Who knows? But yeah, I'm not expecting a huge power broker presence moving like in the final episodes. Maybe like looming as they have been, maybe slightly more since this less serum, but that's what I'm expecting.
Yeah,
Because
good call.
if there really are no more vials, who can the power broker go to get more blood that's accepted the serum? John
J-Dub.
Walker.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, any other final things about this week's Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Any final predictions you want to throw out there before next week?
Um, I don't think I have too many predictions. Couple things I noticed that I thought were funny. When John Walker was holding the serum, he looked like Gollum holding the ring, which I thought was funny.
Nice.
And this is going to be a very specific reference to a very specific audience.
Okay.
The dude that Sam was talking to on like the second floor who was teaching kids
Yes.
looked like Nick Scarpino from Kinda Funny. I'll have to send you an image, but
Okay.
like he looked like a younger version of Nick Scarpino, and it was so funny. I wonder, I'll have to watch their review, but I hope they talk about that because I was like, wow, that's Nick.
I have to go back because I can see it in my memory, but I can't place the guy's face like one to one. But I'll have to go back and look. But that's very funny.
Yeah, it was like obviously classic white guy in a beard, but
Yeah.
he had like the cardigan going. It was just, it looked very similar, and I thought it was funny.
That's very good. But yeah, I guess we can wrap up. Is there anything you want to say before we sign off? If not, where can the agents of Excelsior find you?
Sure. I think episode 4 definitely brought me back. Not that episode 3 had me feeling completely negative about the show, but I felt it was a bit of a sidestep in a way. But I really enjoyed episode 4. It was, I think, some of the darkest images we've seen in the MCU, and I think it's a reiteration that the show is still going to tackle these themes as it has been since episode 1. So yeah, I am all aboard the hype train for episode 5 and then episode 6. But you can follow me on social media at Fascinated Jack. Christian and I, along with our friends Kevin and Omar, finished our playthrough of Metal Gear Solid 3 for the Long Play Club. And let me tell you, we didn't have too many nice things to say about that game. Going against the grain a little bit.
Yeah.
So you can find that discussion on youtube.com/joyclicks or on the Long Play Club via podcast services of your choice. And we're picking up with Metal Gear Solid 4 very soon. And I'm excited.
Hell yes. Likewise, you can find me on that show as well. Twitter, Twitch, TikTok at Chun2D2. That's CHUN number 2D number 2. This show is available on youtube.com/joyclicks if you want the video version of Excelsior. And if you want the audio version for podcast feeds, you can check it out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, any other service that you would like to use. It is most likely there. If you can rate or review on that platform, it's greatly appreciated because it helps us out a ton. And if you enjoy the show, 5 stars, just a quick tap. Real simple, real easy. And leave a review if you want to as well. If you're feeling extra generous, why not? If you're feeling even more generous, though, patreon.com/joyclicks is where you can go to support this show and all of our podcasts at the $1 or $5 tiers. $5 tier gets you producer credit on all of our shows, like Chris Sakas and Aaron Easton. So thank you very much. And that's going to do it for Excelsior this week. Next week, we got our big, chunky, hour-plus long potential episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and maybe some news about tachyon anomalies. We'll see. But until then, Excelsior.
Excelsior.